Today we are going to talk about how to complete the square and change this equation into vertex form. So the first step is to focus on the first two terms, which in this case is x squared minus 12x. If there was anything in front of x squared, this would be time to factor it out. But right now we don't have anything in front of x squared, so we're going to leave that alone. The next step is to complete the square by trying to figure out what we need to add inside the parentheses. If we add something inside the parentheses, we would have just changed the problem. Therefore, we need to add something outside the parentheses to balance things out. So the key now is to figure out what number to add here. It is a two-step process. The first step is finding half of this number, and then the second step is take that number as the base and put it to the power of 2 or square it. So half of negative 12 is negative 6. Negative 6 to the power of 2 is the same thing as negative 6 squared, which is also the same as negative 6 times negative 6, which is positive 36. By adding 36, I just changed the problem. In order to balance it out, I need to cancel that add of 36. We need to add a negative 36 in order to cancel them out to 0, and you're back to where you started from the beginning. Now, the main purpose of doing so is to actually just rewrite this to look something different, something that is more useful to us, which is the vertex form once again. At this point, you should be able to factor this in the parentheses to x minus 6 and x minus 6, and this should always be the same. If you found the correct number here, these two should always come out to the same answer after it is factored. Now right here, if you combine this, you end up with negative 16, and that's why we now have x minus 6 squared. We're just rewriting x minus 6 times x minus 6 is to something simpler, and we just copy the negative 16, and we now have the vertex form. We are going to repeat the process for this one. As you can see, the difference from example 1 and example 2 is that there is something in front of x squared. So our goal right now, is to factor the 2 that is in this first two terms. So if we factor out the 2, we're left with x squared plus 4x. That is the very first thing that you must do. Once again, if there's anything in front of x squared, factor it out. And only factor from this first two terms, what's inside the parentheses. And we can check that is correct by multiplying back to get 2x squared, and by multiplying back to get 8x. Now we are going to complete the square by trying to figure out once more what number do we need to add inside the parentheses, which must balance out by adding something outside the parentheses once more. So we're going to repeat the process and look at this positive 4. We need half of it, and once again put it to the power of 2. So half of 4 is 2. 2 to the power of 2, or 2 squared, is 4. Now here is where a lot of people go wrong. By putting 4 here, some people will put minus 4 here. So the tricky part is looking from here and distribute it to see what it actually means. So even though we rewrote plus 4, it really means plus 8, because the 2 has to distribute to the 4 in order to see what it actually means. So to balance it out, we have to add negative 8 so that this 2 would cancel out. The 2 is still there. We should now be able to factor this parentheses, and that will factor out to x plus 2 times another x plus 2. And combining these two numbers here, you end up with minus 1. And with one more step, this can be written simply as x plus 2 squared minus 1. And we have completed the square. It is now in vertex form once more. We're going to repeat the process once more here and focus on the first two terms. As you can see, there's a negative sign in front. Even that needs to be factored out once more. So if we factor that out, we're left with x squared minus 6x minus 8. And we can check it out once more that if we distribute the minus sign inside the parentheses, negative times x squared is negative x squared, and the negative times the negative 6x is positive 6x. We are correct. So we can move on to the next step and complete the square. We now have to find the number that needs to go inside the parentheses once more and cancel it out once again outside the parentheses. Once more, repeat these two steps. Half of negative 6 is negative 3, and negative 3 squared is positive 9. And once again, you must distribute to see what it actually means. So negative times 9 is negative 9. So it really means negative 9, or subtract 9, which we need to counter by adding a positive 9. And we are left with negative, and inside the parentheses should be able to be factored at this point. 2x minus 3 times another x minus 3, and these two can be combined to a positive 1. And this can be written simpler by saying x minus 3 squared, and we now have completed the square and rewritten this equation to vertex form. As you can see, this right here actually has a shortcut. If you do it correctly every single time, this is always half of that, the middle one, the middle term. Once again, here's positive 4, half of it is positive 2. Every single time, half of negative 12 is negative 6. With that, and that would help you when you are working with fractions and how to factor with fractions. Thank you for watching.